divided kingdom. Kingdom that said Saul, David, and Solomon, the United Kingdom period, and now it's split because of the sins of Solomon. It was idolatry. And Rehoboam and Jeroboam have had the kingdoms in the north and in the south. We're going to dive into that. We'll review that in a minute here. But this is kind of our theme slide for the quarter. And this goes back and said, obedience brings blessings and sins brings curses and punishment. That's what we find all through this whole period of the divided kingdom. Well, the whole Bible is where that goes. This whole period here, God says, you obey me, I'll bless you, and you sin, you turn your back on me, and I'm going to turn my back and forsake you. That's what we see there. Of course, no good kings in Israel at all. All of the people falling after Jeroboam, and that phrase is used over and over. We'll see it again this morning several times. And there are a few good kings in the south. We're involved with some of those now. Asa and then his son Jehoshaphat will be next here. So, God had given the kingdom 10 tribes to Jeroboam. Promised him that if you'll be faithful to me, I'll give you a dynasty, just like David has a dynasty. Jeroboam turns back on God and built the 2 golden calves when it did in Bethel and took off through the idolatry. Jeroboam reigned 22 years. He was not a good king. All his idolatry there. And his son Nadab reigned in his place. And he then was killed by Baasha. And that's kind of what we're getting into the part we're getting toward this morning as far as the north is concerned. Baasha left none of the household of Jeroboam alive. He wiped out the household totally because of the sins of Jeroboam. So Jeroboam reigned, and his son Nadab reigned, and then we have a new dynasty going to start because the entire house got wiped out. And that's kind of what we are in the north end of that. After Baasha then, he's reigning in the north. He reigns for 24 years. Again, not a good king, new dynasty. His choice again. His choice again. God said, you follow me and be faithful to me, and I will set you up, reign forever in the north, as long as you're faithful to me. But Baasha did not do that. He chose to worship the golden calves that Jeroboam had set up. So the kings look like this, where we are so far. On the left, Judah, the southern kingdom, Rehoboam, 17 years. Abijah, his son, 3 years. And then Asa comes in, his son, and he reigned for 41 years. He was a good king. Some bad things about him in his life, but overall his reign was good. Pick up Asa again this morning, the tail end of his reign. Then in the north at the same time, we've got in Israel, we've got Jeroboam and Nadab on the line because that dynasty's over, and Baasha now reigns for 24 years. Asa praised Jehovah. He praised to him because of the Ethiopian army that's coming up. The Ethiopian army, 1 million strong, coming up against Judah. We had this last time. We're just going to do a review here now. And basically what he says is, God, we need help. And it's not beyond you to help, whether there's many or few. Whether there's many with you or people with no power. It doesn't matter. You can help. And it reminds us then of a couple of things we've already studied, know about. That is, Gideon with his 300 men. God kept putting the army down, 300. That's all they needed because God's going to show his power. And then Jonathan did in his armor bearer when they went up to attack the Philistines. And Jonathan used almost these same words. He said, for nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. So the same type of things going on here with things that say we're outnumbered greatly. That's okay because the power is in you. You are our God, he said here. So God gives Asa the victory over the Ethiopians or the Cushites. Down in the choice of Philistine cities, took great bounty back. And the prophet meets him then, and he talks to him and says, hear me, Asa. Listen to me. This is the prophet of God speaking. Listen to me, you and Judah and Benjamin, the 2 tribes with you. And if you seek the Lord, you'll find him. If you forsake him, you won't. He'll forsake you. It's a choice. Gave Asa a choice. Tribes follow him a choice. And we have a choice today. Joshua told the people back in his day, at the end of his reign, as being over the people, bringing them into the invasion and conquest time period, that choose for your state and you'll serve. It's always a choice. God will not ever force me to obey him. It's my choice if I'm going to obey him or not. I obey him because of what he's done for me. I obey him because of his love he's given to me. He first loved us before we loved him. He showed us how to love him. I had this slide in. The verse right before this, verse 7, is the end of the prophet speaking there. And he says, be strong and do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. We talked about that verse last time. And when Asa heard these words, I left this verse out. It was called to my attention. I put it here. He took courage. These words encouraged Asa. And we need to be encouraged. We need to take courage. Put our hands in work. Our hands be rewarded too. And we'll go back looking at a couple of verses that kind of tie in with that. Back in Deuteronomy, it's Moses speaks again toward the end of his life. Be strong and good courage. Do not fear, not be afraid of them. For the Lord your God is with you. He's the one that goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. This is Moses telling them what to do when they got into the promised land there. And then this from Joshua. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. The Lord your God is with you wherever you go. If you look at those words, that verse, what a song we sing. It's almost word for word taken from that verse. Be strong and courageous. The Lord is with you wherever you go. That's song. And then one from Psalms that kind of ties into this. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage. Strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So when Asa heard the words of the prophet here, he took courage. And I got one more here, and this word really ties into us, I think, here on this point, being courageous. When Paul is on his journey, and he's going in up to Rome, and they land there in Italy, and people came out, the brethren from around there, knew Paul was coming. They came out to meet him. The verse says, when Paul saw them, when he saw these brethren came out to meet him, he thanked God for it, and he took courage. Just their being there for Paul, just their being there, gave Paul courage. So he thanked God for it. And we can be courageous. We can make each other courageous. We can encourage each other just by our presence, just by caring for one another and what we do for one another. And to pick that up from that one there. So moving on to the review here. When people in the northern kingdom saw what was going on in the south, and they were following God, they were being blessed, they came down then. They left the northern part and came down, and Israel, and they were strengthened because of that. And we've got this verse here to tie with that. When people see us doing good, God gets the glory. People see us doing good, God gets the glory because of our light shine. So, Asa now comes in. He wants to stop this flow of people down to the south. So he sets up his siege, if you will, kind of in the middle of the country, where people from the north won't go down into the south. And Asa, who has already gotten help from God against the million-man army that came up from Ethiopia, this time instead of going to God for help, because the king of Syria and Hadad and asked him for help. And the prophet comes to him and says, why? Why did you do this? Don't you know God can use this for help? He's the one you go to for your powers. Did he not deliver you from the Ethiopians? Why did you turn your back on it? And then, not unlike us, when people correct us, Asa got mad at the prophet, put him in prison, and treated him badly because he had told him what he did not want to hear. He told us the truth. We'll talk again about Asa dying here in a minute. This morning's lesson. We also talked about these verses a little bit. Seek God, you'll find him. It said they did seek him. They sought him with all their soul, and they were found by him. We talked about this verse. Draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you. How we do that? Purify your hearts. Get rid of evil in our lives. And then here's some of the house we talked about. draw near to God by our prayer, praying to Him as we should, our association who we associate with, study His Word, meditate on it, and just do it. Just practice. Trying to walk in the steps of the Savior. So that's kind of what we left off with last time. I took too much time almost going through that. Let's get into this morning's stuff. 1 Kings 16. We'll start off actually in 2 Chronicles 16. As we pick up with some of the life of Asa. Asa's king in Judah. He's 36th year. Asa's toward the end of his reign now. And Baasha's king in Israel. And they're at war. They're at war. And this is the same war we just mentioned earlier. But this siege has gone on here. And Asa goes to Ben-Hadad, takes the gold and silver. Essentially buys his allegiance, if you will. He comes and attacks Israel then. And Asa gets chastised by the prophet for putting his trust in the king of Syria and Ben-Hadad and not in God. But Hanani in prison because of that. Now, in the north, Jehu is the prophet going to go and he's going to rebuke Baasha. He rebukes Baasha for a much different reason. Much different reason. Baasha's in the north. All the kings there are bad. But they have to be, but by their choice. Now, that's a little small on the screen up there. It's in 1 Kings chapter 16. We're back over there now. And this is what the prophet tells Baasha. Inasmuch as I lifted you out of the dust and made you ruler over my people Israel, and you have walked in the way of Jeroboam. I told you earlier we're going to say that phrase over and over and over. Jeroboam set the whole stage for all the kings of Israel. And that phrase is used over and over to denote their sins, their evil, their idolatry. Walked in the ways of Jeroboam, and you made the people of Israel sin. You provoked me to anger. And underline that word anger. We're going to see it several times in the slide this morning. We talked about that a couple times back. Remember the slide we have the big bolt of light on it. What happens to God when he sees sin? What's his reaction to it? He's jealous because he is our God, the only God. He's jealous if we bring other gods in, and he gets angry because of it. So we're going to underline the word anger. You'll see it several times this morning. Angry about that. So he tells Baasha, I'm going to take the kingdom away from you. Just as you went in and killed all the household of Jeroboam, same thing's going to happen to you in your household. And whoever dies in the city, and also they whoever dies in the country, the birds of the air will eat. So the same thing about Baasha and his sons after him has happened to Jeroboam. So Elah, son of Baasha, reigned in his place, and the same verse is repeated in almost we just read from there in verse 7. Again, the prophet comes to him and says, all the evil you did, both the Lord and anger, that word's used again. Second time we've seen it here now. Because again, you followed the sins of Jeroboam, and it's the way you walked, what you did. So now we're in the 26th year of Asa. Asa, of course, is in Judah. Elah is now reigning in Israel, and Zimri. Zimri is the commander of his chariots, one of his commanders in Elah's army. And he comes in to Elah, finds him drunk, and he kills him. And more than that, he kills all the relatives. Again, the same thing that happened to the house of Jeroboam now happened to the house of Baasha. Just as the prophet has said, wipe out the house. And it was interesting, I thought, to notice, not only did he kill all the family, the sons of Baasha, you notice there, and also said he killed their friends. But he just cleaned out the house. God's doing this because he doesn't like the evil they're doing in the north. He keeps trying to find somebody there who will serve him. So Zimri wiped out the house of Baasha, Baasha and Elah were the kings, and now Zimri is going to set himself up to be the king. So, again, we got this verse, same type of thing. They sin, provoke God to anger with their worship of idols. So, slide over here. All right. Bottom line, Zimri. He is now king that killed Elam and all the household of nation. And he's now set himself up to be king. And he reigns a really long time. He reigns all of 7 days. And Omri, with another one of the commanders, here's what Zimri has done. He comes in to where he is and brings all the army that's with him in there. And Zimri realizes he ain't got a chance. And he doesn't want to face his enemies there, but his own people, but now they become the enemies that try and fight for the throne. And so he goes into the house of the king and sets it on fire and burns it down himself. He kills himself. He reigned all of 7 days. And there's a little battle about who's going to be king then, and Omri pulls out and wins over that cause. Zimri, the verse in that described his short reign. The same verse we got for everybody else in the north. He made his sins into an evil, walked in the ways of Jeroboam, and made Israel sin. The same pattern we've seen over and over and over. The people make Omri king over them now. He was one of the commanders of the army. It's the 31st year of Asa. Asa's getting down, really close to the end of his reign now. And Omri reigned for 12 years. And the biggest thing we got to know of him is he built the city of Samaria. So look at the map in just a minute, and we'll see Samaria on there. Sorry. All right. Omri bought the hill of where Samaria is. He built the city of Samaria there. And let's look at the map a minute with that. All right. Kind of get oriented here. Here's the Sea of Galilee. We're in the north part now. This is the Kingdom of Israel in the north. Sea of Galilee's here. It's the Jordan River coming down through here. Mount Carmel was in the next couple of lessons up here. Here's the Jezreel Valley. Mount Gilboa, where Saul and Jonathan were killed in the battle. So Shechem here has been the capital down here. But here's Samaria over here, where he bought the land. And Omri builds his capital city here in Samaria. That stays and becomes the capital of the northern kingdom then for years and years to come. It's the city of Samaria. Still kind of in the middle of the country here. Now, we've seen every king in the north come in, and what's said about them? Basically two things. They followed in the ways of Jeroboam, and they made God angry because of their idolatry, what they did. Now look at what's said about good old Omri. He was worse than everybody lived before him. It's bad enough already. God's been wiping the dynasties out because the people are so bad, they're sinning and won't do what God wants them to. And now Omri comes in, and this phrase here is used about him. He's worse than all that lived before him. Same thing. Walked in the ways of Jeroboam, made Israel to sin, provoked God to anger. It's almost like just take the verse and copy it over and over and over. Every one of these kings having through here. So my question is, do we see a pattern? I mean, it's over and over and over. And who set the stage of this? All the way back to Jeroboam. It's golden calves he built. That's where it came from. Now, if Omri's not bad enough, worse than everybody who lived before him, worse than all the kings before him, now we've got Ahab coming in, his son. So when Omri dies, Ahab now king. And remember anything at all about this frame here, this time frame, we know about Ahab. So Ahab's on reign 22 years, and what's said about Ahab? Well, if his father Omri wasn't bad enough, doing more evil than anybody before him, the same verse is used then about Ahab. He did more evil than those before him. So it's this downward spiral going over and over, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse with their behavior. And now to top all that off, who does Ahab marry? Jezebel. Okay, Jezebel. He's the daughter of this Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians. Remember Tyre and Sidon? Tyre and Sidon are way up on the map, way up in the north part, right up here above Mount Carmel. So that's where she was from. And she served Baal. Now, look at Baal. Baal mainly means owner or king or ruler type thing. That's what the word itself means. And there's lots of different variations of Baal worship. The main thing we're going to see in this is this fertility goddess type thing. Goddess of fertility, fornication as far as their temple worship, priests, priestesses, male and female prostitutes, all involved in the worship of Baal in this time frame. That's not to read. So now, what's the morals of the country going to? I mean, it was bad enough already serving golden calves. Now you're serving Baal, and you brought this into the worship. So you just see how bad things have gotten in Israel. Now, hang on to that thought of how bad things are in Israel. But we got this an absolute knockout coming up here a little later on. It's because of all this. A little picture of a it's a short distance, like 3 or 4 inches tall. This will be a little household version of one of the images that they've uncovered of Baal and their diggings over there. So, Ahab, same verse, again, provoked God to anger and did worse than all the kings before it. Now, right at the end of this chapter, we have a verse stuck in here that really doesn't have nothing to do with this whole time frame as far as what's going on, except one little verse stuck in here, and the city of Jericho. What happened to the city of Jericho when Israel first came in, started the invasion and conquest? They marched around the city every day, one time for 6 days, 7 times the 7th day. What the walls do? They fell down, okay? So the city of Jericho has been destroyed. They went in and took it. And there's a verse in Joshua, very small at the bottom there, Joshua 6, verse 26, where Joshua speaks a prophecy that whoever builds back the city of Jericho, when he does, when he digs the foundation, his firstborn son will die, and when he finishes up and hangs the gates of the city, his youngest son will die. That's all the way back in Joshua, several hundred years before this. And guess what we have in 1 Kings chapter 16, the very last verse. In his days, Ahab's days, Hiel of Bethel built Jericho, laid his foundations for the cost of the firstborn of the gates, for the cost of his youngest. And the verse even says, which has been spoken through Joshua, the son of Nun, just as Joshua prophesied, Jericho had been rebuilt because of man had 2 sons, the eldest and his youngest. All right, now then, we'll go back to the south here. Talk about Asa a minute. End of his reign, 39th year, he reigns 41 years, remember. 39th year of his reign, he gets very diseased in his feet. We mentioned this a couple of classes back. And the big thing about it, as much as he relied on God all in the past, except for when he went Hadad for help, he doesn't do it again. He seeks help from the physicians, which is okay, but who did leave totally out of the picture here? He does not seek any help from God for this disease he had in his feet. That's his 39th year, then he dies in his 41st year. And he's buried there in the city of David, and apparently with great mourning. His son Jehoshaphat reigned in his place. Asa had left the southern kingdom in good shape. They had been devoted to God. Asa served God. He was a good king. Makes a couple of mistakes in judgment. He was a good king overall. So Jehoshaphat takes over his father, and things are much, much better than they've been in the south anytime so far. Certainly with the reign of Rehoboam and his sons. So Jehoshaphat just says that makes things better. Another good king. He's going to reign for a number of years. He strengthens Judah against Israel. Instead of saying the verse about him, instead of saying he followed the steps of Jeroboam and made God angry, it's like the opposite. He did not serve the Baals. Idols. And he walked in the commandments of God, walked in his commandments. So Jehoshaphat's going to be another good king in the south. We'll follow his life some more. He makes one big mistake. I'll talk about that. We'll think about it in the class, I think, for a minute. Jehoshaphat took the high places down, the other places, even though the people who had been serving God that were still in high places where the idols had been. He took some of those down, and the big thing he did was he sent the teachers, priests, Levites out to the land, and they noticed they took the book of the law with them. They went out to teach the people. They're getting down now, not just serve God because they ain't serving God. He's getting out and teaching the people what God wants them to do so they can serve Him from their own knowledge. All the surrounding kingdoms get afraid of Jehoshaphat because the Lord is blessing him so. And even the Philistines, now get this, who's been the nemesis of Israel for years and years and years, back to David's time and before that. And on the coast over there, right next to Judah and Israel. But the Philistines now were impressive to Jehoshaphat. And all the ones around him then are fearful of it. And might be a good reason for it. Now he's got an army over 1 million men, Jehoshaphat has. And this goes to this slide does, and shows the captains over and how many each one of them are over up there. And you got all this up, well over 1 million men and Jehoshaphat's army. So here's our kings now. Here's where we are. In Judah, we had Rehoboam, the son of Abijah, both bad. Then Asa for 41 years. 41 years was a long reign this time. A good king. And then Jehoshaphat, his sons, will come in behind him for 25 more years. And he'll follow the steps of his father, and overall he's a good king. The north, Jeroboam and Nadab, wipe them out. Baasha and Elah, Shemaiah wipes them out. He reigns for a whole week. And Omri comes in and kills him. And you got Omri and Ahab. So right now we got Ahab in the north, and he's going to be a pain. And we got Jehoshaphat in the south. Here's where they're going to get really bad. These two are going to become buddies. How in the world would you think that ever happened? But they did. And then because of them having a friendship, which we'll see in the next lesson, because of them having a friendship, their children marry. Now you've got this evil north and the good south intermarrying here. And that really causes major problems. We'll see. We'll get into it further. Now, on my chart I've made here, I'm going to confuse you now on the next slide. I've got Judah on the left, the southern kingdom, and Israel on the right. Okay. Judah's on your left, Israel's on the right. This is going to flip it around. I'm sorry. I found this chart. I like it. It's got the actual years, the time frame built in here. But it flips them around. Now, Israel on the right, Judah's on the left. But you see the kings that are down through here, and it kind of breaks the times out. So we're getting down, started out here at 921. The whole thing started out with Solomon. And down now into the mid-850s time frame here, they have Jehoshaphat reigning. And then the names are going to get even worse. So we're going to have Jehoram here, Ahaziah here, Ahaziah here. And then go to Athaliah, jumps over here, comes over here. So the names are going to really get started confusing here. The next two lessons. When I pop this chart up, remember to flip it around for other this. Okay. All right. Let's think about this a minute. Get kind of through the narrative now. 1 Kings 16, verse 13. All the sins of Baasha, the sins of Elah his son, by which they had sinned, and which they made Israel to sin. We talked about this in one of our other classes. We talked about Jeroboam and leadership. They sinned and made Israel sin. Their leadership, what they were doing, the way they reigned, who they chose to serve. Leadership. Everybody in this room has got some kind of leadership responsibility. Okay, where you are age-wise, you're a young person, younger kids watching you, whether you're parents, whether you're teachers in a class, whether you're elders in the church, I don't care where you are in your life, you've got some leadership responsibilities. And those that are looking up to you, those that are following you, which way are you going to look? Where are you going to pull them? Lots of us older people in here, kids and grandkids, some with great grandkids. What's our influence on them? How are we leading people around us? Like Asa and Jehoshaphat, more right came from the north. That influence was like that. Omri and Ahab had said of them that they did more evil than all those before them. Did more evil than all those before them. So, how bad has it been already in Israel? How bad it was when Jeroboam set his calves up and turned his back on God right then and said, remember what he said? These are the gods that brought you out of the land of Egypt. These are the gods, these calves here brought you out of the land of Egypt. These are your gods. That's when the conversion started, and they left God, the north did, and they never came back to him. And now it's gotten where not just, as every king says, they were like Jeroboam and make God angry with their sin. Now we got with this one, it's worse than any before him. Next that comes up, he's worse than any before him. So sin is progressing. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And that's just the way it is. Sin's a downward spiral. We get caught up in it, it's going to pull us. It's a whirlwind. It's going to drag us down. I put a slide in this slide. I did the same class 3 years ago, went for a 3-year cycle, 2012. And then I did the same class in 2009. Now, when I put this slide in here about thinking about the U.S. today, I don't know if it's 3 years ago or 6 years ago. I don't think it really matters. Is the U.S. worse today than it was 3 years ago? Is it worse than it was 6 years ago? Yeah, I think the downward spiral is continuing. I revise the slides when I go through them every time I go through the time. I do this class, but that line was in there either 3 years ago or 6 years ago. My point is, I looked at it and said, I want to change this line. He changed the line. Because it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Just like the North did. The morals of this country. It's just a downward spiral. Going and going. And I see heads shaking all over the place here. We're just in a downward spiral. Because sin just sucks us in. It's not just them out there. We've got to watch the luscious too. They suck us in if we're not very careful. Remember this verse. Desires the seed, gives forth birth to sin. Sin is full grown, brings death. Aggressive. You see it around us. It's that association we talk about going near to God, our prayer and our study, and our association with other people. If we're the wrong people, what's he going to do? Suck us right in with it. But David. When David first saw Bathsheba, I just taught this in the high school class last week. David first saw Bathsheba. He turned his head and walked away. What would have happened? Totally different history. Totally different. David stopped running. But lust was there. And when lust sprang on, sin forward, bring her to me. Brought adultery. Oh, then I'm pregnant. Now what? I got to take care of the husband. So lust, adultery, murder. David's part. Progression. One call on another, call on another. Prodigal son, New Testament. How far did he have to go before he decided to have a home? All the way to the bottom. Sin got him, and it's going to drag him down. Now, the positive thing about that is he recognized it at that point, and he came back. And where was his father when he came back? Sat out there looking for him, watching for him. God is up there. Get caught up in sin, get pulled out the spiral. God wants us back. He wanted the northern kingdom back. He tried to get the northern kingdom back. They wouldn't come back to him. Sin grabs us and tries to put it down. God's there waiting for us. God's there waiting for us. All we have to do is come back. The prodigal son did. I thought about this. Think about us and the sin there. The verse we had earlier here. Be strong, be of good courage. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. Why? Who's with us? All the time. Do what he wants us to do. God says, seek me. What I'm talking about, seek me. You will find me. Forsake me. I'll forsake you. So God's there. He's with us. We just are trusting. Okay. I think that's the last slide. Got about 3 minutes. I got thoughts. Left out. Talk about points. Anybody? Well, Mike says, Israel gets so bad, who did God bring in to valley the punishment on them? The Syrians. Are they a nation that followed God? No, they're not. That's what God used to punish them. And when Judah then got so bad, who did he bring in to punish them? Babylon. Were they a godly nation? No, they used the ungodly nations to punish his people who were doing wrong. So if you keep that in mind, I think our situation today, we get to that where we are in this country. I don't know that. The other point Mike made is very well. The point made by God can save by many or by few. We may be the few. We may be the few. We have to stand up. Keep standing up for what's right. Okay. Get your schedule to see what's up for next class. We did Elijah and the prophets of Baal next time. I took your lesson ahead in my book, so I don't remember which we got next time. We've got that coming up. Elijah and the prophets of Baal here. Okay, thank you very much.